Randy, you're next. Are you ready to give your presentation?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, tell us what Thanksgiving Day means to you.
Well, Thanksgiving Day has always meant a lot of good food to eat, especially desserts. My mom bakes the best apple pie, it's so good. And we usually have family and friends come over and we watch football after we eat. It's a pretty cool day, especially since we don't have school. But recently, I've learned a lot of things about Thanksgiving that I never knew, and they are important things. So I want to tell you guys about it too. A couple of weeks ago, I was at my church, and my pastor told us he wanted us to imagine what life was like when the settlers came to this land. There were no trains, airplanes, or cars. There were no houses already built for them to move into. There weren't even any streets. There was wilderness all around. There wasn't a grocery store to get your food, you had to hunt for it. There wasn't video games or movie theaters, or TV either. There weren't even sports teams back then. You had to read a book, or play games outside for fun. And maybe if there was a spare sock, it could be used to make a rag doll. Back then, there wasn't even electricity. Another thing the settlers had to deal with was the weather. They didn't know about the seasons here, or how long the seasons last. They had no idea how deep the snow gets, and they weren't prepared for the severe winters in this new world. So life was very hard for the settlers who came here. One reason was because they knew nothing about it. They didn't know where to hunt food, or what snakes are safe, and which ones could kill you. They didn't even know what plants they could eat, and which ones were poisonous. And they didn't have bathrooms either, so I'm pretty sure some of them made the mistake of using poison ivy for toilet paper, just like my cousin did when he went hiking in the woods. You see, the truth is, the settlers would have never survived in this land if it wasn't for the native people coming to their rescue. By sharing their food, their skills, and their knowledge, they are the reason that the settlers didn't die off. Oh, so what? We all know the settlers and the Indians had a big powwow. And all the Indians danced around wearing loincloths and feathers, while shouting, "Woo, ya, ya, ya. Woo, ya, ya, ya." What does that have to do with anything?
Brian, don't be rude.
Well, let's look at it this way. How would you feel if one day, a lot of people from another land far away came to our city, and imagine that they needed food and water, as well as clothing, and all kinds of help surviving our weather, because they weren't used to it. So suppose you gave them plenty of the food they needed, and clothes, and you shared your medicine with them. Then you taught them the things they needed to know in order to survive. And you were cool with them being in your city, because you had no bad intentions. For a while, everyone is getting along. But one day, people stop getting along, and the foreigners become hostile. They want to take your land from you for themselves, and push you out. Then they declare war on you, and start killing your people. Then you realize you had no idea what the foreigners were really up to. And even worse, you're the ones who helped them.
If that was me, I'd fight. I wouldn't let anybody take my home and my stuff. They'd find out.
And that's exactly what the natives did. They fought for their home, their people, and their way of life. But they didn't win, did they? Ha! Wait. That's right. They had spears. How dumb, dude? Yes. Thousands and thousands of people were slaughtered. People like the Nipmuc, Mohegans, and Mohawks tribes were killed in King Philip's War of 1675, as well as the Wampanoag Indians, who were the first to help the colonists and set up trade with them. Like I said, they brought spears. What did they expect? Truth is, many thousands of Native Americans died of diseases like cholera, smallpox, tuberculosis, the bubonic plague, and even the measles.
They died from the measles? I had measles before, it was awful. No way I'd want to go out like that. Why didn't they get a shot?
Measles and those other diseases weren't in this land. They were brought here by the colonists. The native people didn't have immunity from them, so they didn't know how to treat those diseases, and were helpless. Imagine, you or your loved one gets sick with something you've never seen before, and all you can do is watch them suffer and die. And even worse, it isn't just one or two people here and there, but entire communities of natives were wiped out. My grandpa died a couple of years ago when everybody was sick. And even with all the doctors and medicine, he still died. That was painful, dude, and scary too. We were helpless, man. There was nothing anybody could do. I feel that. I'm sorry about your grandpa, and I hope you can remember lots of fun times with him. But back to the history of Thanksgiving. So, by the time this nation was formed back in 1776, millions of Native Americans had been murdered. The really sad thing is, some tribes of people were completely destroyed, and no one from those tribes survived. For real? You mean like ethnic cleansing? That's what we just learned about in history class. That's what happened in World War II. I had no idea that happened here in this country. It did. Millions of people were wiped out. And that's why for the Native people, the day we celebrate as Thanksgiving is not a day of Thanksgiving for them. It is a day of mourning. A day when they remember the millions of people who were killed for trying to preserve their land and heritage from the colonizers.
So how do you observe Thanksgiving?
Well, I'm thankful to God every day for my family, friends, and all the cool things I have. I always thank God for everything good in my life. It's important to be grateful for what you have. But now, I also think about the people who originally lived in this land, and how much they loved it, and what it cost them so that we could be here. I think it's respectful to learn about the Native people, and to remember why Thanksgiving Day is a day that they mourn.
How did your presentation go today, Randy?
Well, at first the kids were kind of rude to me. Some of them even said, "Who cares?" But by the end of my essay, I think most of the class took a moment to think about what I was saying. And some of them told me I did a good job. My teacher was even sniffling.
Wow, you know what that means? That means you were able to reach their hearts and help them to see someone else's point of view. And think about what someone else is experiencing. It's not always easy to get others to be empathetic and value someone else's feelings. And you know what? I'm truly proud of you for being able to look beneath the surface and recognize what happened to the Native people of this land.